Prologue. Getting up to speed.
Sleeper cars, high-performance vehicles with an unassuming exterior. Very cool. Some sleepers can even outperform high-end supercars. You can shock anyone with the sheer specs on your GMC Cyclone or your Volvo 240? What? I would love to tell you more about the history of these things, but every time I try and Google anything, it comes up with a history on trains. Anyways, the idea was cool enough to make it into an avenue similar to car tuning, PC building. For years now, people have been taking old cases and filling them with new, high-performance parts. In fact, because of this, old cases are sold at ridiculous prices and can sometimes cost more than a new computer altogether. I had been looking for a hobby recently, so even though I know almost nothing about computers, I decided that I was gonna build one.
Chapter 1. Source and receive.
First I had to get my hands on a vintage case. Due to a coolness tax, most cases were out of my price range. After a couple of weeks, this bad boy popped up and was just what I was looking for. It looked good, it was a comfortable size, and it was really cheap compared to other options. Once it showed up, I emptied the contents and wiped and dusted the entire thing. And don't worry, I was being cautious and safe with the package. It was pretty scuffed up, but that just added to the sleeper aesthetic.
Chapter 2. Disassembly.
Now it was time to take apart the case and my current pre-built computer and try and see if my current computer's guts would fit inside. This took me a while because I was very unfamiliar with the design of the case and I didn't want to damage anything. Taking out the parts of my PC was the point of no return because I had no idea how to rebuild it without online help. When buying the case, I made sure it was ATX instead of AT, which is computer lingo for the big board has different connectors. And after fitting all the parts that I could into the case, I discovered that I would have to make a few modifications. I need to make a mount for my liquid cooler. I need to get fans for the lower entry point and the upper exit point. I'd have to find a replacement for the two front USB ports, figure out how to connect the power switch, and maybe find a way to glue on the old disk drive and whatever this thing was. I plan on leaving the floppy disk intact and maybe eventually hooking it up to my computer. That relic is way too cool to get rid of.
Chapter 3. Setup.
Now that I knew what I had to do to get things fit inside, I started to order the parts. Right away I made the mistake of ordering a fan too large for anywhere on the case. Instead of returning the fan, I decided to make it work. Besides, this build was going to need as much air as I could pump through the system, since the case was not designed for the kind of hardware I was putting into it. I got one more fan for the back of the case, this time the right size. And for the top mount, I planned on using a hole saw, but due to the hole I needed being too large, I was going to have to cut it by hand. For the front fan, I could just bend some metal and mount the fan to that. I was limited by how close I could get to the front panel by the cover's tabs though. Hardest thing was going to be the power switch as it had older model connector pins. This meant I was either going to have to do some wire work or figure something else out. The last thing to deal with was the two front panel USB ports. Since they weren't necessary to the build, I decided that I would replace them at a later date. And that brings us to the present, or rather when I started working on this assignment.
Chapter 4. Mod Day. Conclusion. Wrapping things up.
Well, that was trickier than I imagined. I tried to capture all the process of modifying the case, but I would get so caught up in the process that I would forget to film. Although I still ended up cutting out a lot of footage in editing, so I guess it didn't matter. Throughout modding, there were problems that would pop up all over the place. It led to the process becoming more improvisation than anything else. And as for the computer, it's not exactly how I imagined it. The case wasn't designed to fit thick cables, so it gets pretty messy inside. On the outside, there's a lot of gaps in the front, and the power LED is way too bright. And of course, there's the holes on the top. They were necessary for airflow, and even though I tried to put as little as possible, they really stick out and blow the PC's cover. In the end, the computer went from a sleeper to more of a weird tribute to older cases. I still like it though, and after it was all over, I could put together a computer by memory alone. Well, thanks for watching, and sorry I went over the time limit even though I cut out a good amount of content. I still need to fit in an interview, so enjoy the credits. And I almost forgot. Sorry about the microphone static. Alright, so we're doing this for a second time.
Oh, that's fine. So, my first question for you is what gave you the idea to go take your perfectly good gaming device and dismantle it and put it in some old case? Like, where does that idea come from?
Well, from sleeper cars and stuff. Like, kind of just the idea of having something that'll blow the socks off of people once they figure out that your, crummy computer from the 2000s is actually packing heat.
And when you dismantled your entire device and you looked at all your parts, what was going through your mind at that point? Because it seems like it's the point of no return. If you either got to go all the way or you just did a terrible thing.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, well, I'm gonna have to get this perfectly right, otherwise I guess I'll have to go into a shop or something and get it fixed.
So as you're going through each piece, and things were working or not working, what was, how did you end up troubleshooting, like, these moments where you had counted on something arriving and fitting just right, and then it wouldn't? Like, how much of a setback was that?
Well, not very much. It just meant that I was gonna have to do a lot more case modding. Like, if I had gotten more orders wrong than that one fan, it would have made my life a whole lot harder and the project a lot longer and more difficult along the line. So it was a minor setback and one that I would, try to avoid in the future.
Did anybody help you with this, or were you, because I don't know anything about how to build a computer, so you're either just out on your own? I mean, did your dad help you at all, or how did you?
Oh yeah, my dad helped me a whole lot, supplying the tools for the job and also teaching me how to use those tools properly. I figure I could have done everything by myself, but it was pretty fun learning, like, hands-on and stuff, or much more easy to learn when it's hands-on and stuff. Of course, I also used a lot of stuff from the internet, like learning how to tear apart a computer properly and also how to put it back together and stuff like that. But by the end, I didn't really use the internet that much.
Well, it looked like it was an incredibly difficult step-by-step. You had to be really methodical and then think it all the way through how it was all going to play out. But, like, also it looked like documenting it, because remembering that you needed to document each and every step seemed likewise difficult. Like, which was the harder task, to document your work or to actually build that computer?
Definitely document it. Yeah, it was really hard to remember to try and find an interesting angle for everything I was doing, and record what I was doing in the first place, because I would just get so wrapped up in the project. And also I kept running into problems like the battery dying in the camera, or the SIM card in the camera getting full of memory and stuff. So yeah, that was definitely the more difficult part.
So do you see in your future more computer rebuilding kind of activities, or just different activities and then focusing on documenting it?
Well, I definitely enjoyed documenting it as well as building it. I definitely plan on continuing to make videos like this, because it was fun, and also I do plan on making modded PC cases in the future as well, because yeah, it was very enjoyable.
Well, are you actually going to use this sleeper car device that you've created, this Frankenstein monster?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll run into some thermal issues due to like the wires, and it's a pretty tight fit inside the case. I mean, I'll try and fix that if that comes up, but if I can't fix it, then I'll have to switch over, because I do need a functional PC over a cool PC.
Yes, and I know that you have some extended sessions that come up from time to time where you need some serious hours of gameplay, and it'll have to keep up with your gaming lifestyle.
Yeah, hours on end.
Well, I'm very impressed with what you did on so many levels. One, it would scare me to completely detach my computer before I knew how to put it back together. So that's impressive, your courage. I did notice all the obstacles that you went through where the parts didn't fit, where you had to really think through next steps, and I was really impressed that you had such perseverance. And then on top of all that, trying to document it and move it along in a timely manner. It was really impressive. Very proud of you.
Well, thank you.